What happened next at El Greco? After Gordon's visit, progress was made in the following weeks, with positive feedback from the community. However, the restaurant's debts were too large to overcome, and El Greco closed in December 2011. Several staff members, including the lead line cook, left the restaurant. Cook James reported many disagreements after filming and claimed that Jake, the owner, became difficult to work with. James also mentioned that Jake started cutting corners on Gordon's menu. Yelp reviews following the episode were mostly negative, with complaints about food quality, menu availability, and slow service. Local press reported that regulars were unhappy with the changes Gordon made, claiming that he removed authentic Greek dishes in favor of generic Greek fast food. El Greco was aired on January 20, 2012. The episode was filmed in August/September 2011, and is Kitchen Nightmares Season 5 Episode 9. Now let's see some reviews for El Greco. This evening was my first experience at El Greco, and I was pretty impressed. I did not go because of this Chef Ramsay character. I don't know who or what that is. I called in a to-go order, but then I got an important phone call, so I didn't get there within 15 minutes, like I said I would. After a half hour, they called me to make sure I wasn't lost, which was nice. Overall, in fact, my interactions with their wait staffer were very good. They had my order ready to go when I got there, and I admired the interior while I waited for the server to finish serving some wine and come help me. The only negative about the place, to my mind, was that the interior doesn't quite do it for me. I perceived the place as being very blue, and the wait staff as being overly dressed for what seemed to be more like a diner than a casual restaurant. I think they need to work out their identity with that part. Is it the kind of place I can go in and order something to go from the counter, or is it primarily a sit-down place with wine? I ended up getting the check in the traditional credit card book, despite the fact that I was just picking food up. Overall, I was pretty happy not to be eating at the restaurant. Price wasn't a huge deal for me since I was using a Malala voucher that I bought a while back. Nevertheless, my first impression was that it seemed a bit high, given my image of the place as a low-cost Greek deli, rather than a sit-down grill. But my beef moussaka was excellent, and well worth the $10 price tag, especially considering the tasty Greek salad that came with it. I thought all the ingredients tasted fresh and well prepared. My praise would extend to the desserts, as well. I got both baklava and ravne, which were very well done. I did like the place and I would like to go back to try their other options, particularly the pita and hummus. Also, I hope they add dolmas to their menu offerings at some point. Nice job, El Greco. I spent 2 weeks in Greece almost a decade ago, and like all boorish buffoons who try to appear more worldly than they are in a lame attempt to impress people, I consider myself the world's foremost expert on Hellenic cuisine. I'm kidding. Mostly I just get really excited about Mythos beer. I spent a lot of time drinking a lot of Mythos beer when I was in Greece. So El Greco would probably get 5 stars from me solely based just on their Mythos beer availability. One sip of the Coors Light of Greece and I'm sunning on the shores of the Aegean talking pretentiously about Euripides like it's the summer of 2000, man. Good times. Anyway, the food at El Greco is excellent too. I've had everything on the menu now, I think. Best pita bread I've ever had. Awesome gyro meat. Appropriately rich moussaka. Great avgolemono. Particularly well-seasoned souvlaki. The folks at the counter are nice and, though most menu items are a tad overpriced, I've never had to pay for extra tzatziki. Score. When I heard that Gorden Ramsay had just finished an episode of Kitchen Nightmares here, I knew I had to try this place out. I wish I had been there before the episode so I could compare before and after, but oh well, at least I was gonna get to experience the new and improved restaurant just 6 days after Chef Ramsay's makeover. First impressions were pretty good. The place looked nice enough. We were greeted at the door by a friendly waiter named Peter who was also our server for the night. But then, when Peter saw me checking in on Yelp, he commented that the Yelp reviews in this town are way too harsh. That's not a good sign. And sure enough, that's about when the trouble started. They were out of our initial wine selection, so Peter recommended an alternative. I tried to order the lamb pita, but they were out of lamb meat, so Peter recommended the flank steak. We tried to order the falafel appetizer, and Peter advised us against it. You see, this was the new falafel appetizer, put in place by Chef Ramsay, and Peter assured us that the old falafel appetizer, now called zucchini fritters, were much better. Taking his advice, we ordered the fritters. They were, in fact, really good, but the serving size was way too small to justify the $6 price. They should be $3 or $4 at most. Then came the main course. Well, actually, the main course came about 45 minutes later. We had already finished our entire bottle of wine, the zucchini fritters didn't last very long to begin with, and we were ready to eat our own arms off by the time we finally got our food. And when we finally did get it, we were saddened to discover that it was not at all worth the wait. Both of our pitas were mall food court quality at best. Very dry, with little flavor to speak of. And they were served with French fries. French fries. What kind of side dish is that at a Greek restaurant? Give us hummus, or falafel, or olives, or dolmas something Greek. And they weren't even good fries. They brought back images of so many middle school cafeterias past. But then it got even better, worse. While we were eating our mediocre meal, some sort of argument broke out in the kitchen involving the owner, a couple cooks, and Peter, our server. I'm not sure what it was about, but it ended with Peter and the two cooks quitting and walking out. And as if that wasn't awkward enough, the entire restaurant was then left with only one waitress to serve all the tables. And though she tried her best, it was simply too much for her. Service suffered, empty glasses went unfilled, checks never came, and long story short we ended up getting our meal for free. I went ahead and paid for the bottle of wine, because it was actually pretty good, but I'm happy I didn't end up having to pay $6 for those zucchini fritters or $11 for those terrible pitas. Maybe when the Kitchen Nightmares episode airs, I'll get some new insight about El Greco that will convince me to give them another shot. Or maybe not. But either way, their challenge for the time being will simply be to stay in business for that long. This restaurant took part in the Restaurant.com promotion, where you can buy $25 gift certificates for $10. When my husband and I tried to use ours, they have no expiration, but we haven't been getting out as much as we'd like, so it was about 8 months old. The staff told us the owner would not accept it. The owner got on the phone, and screamed at me that I must have already used it, because it was old. Not so had they called the number, they would have been able to verify it wasn't used. He told me, "Go fuck yourself," before hanging up on me. When I told my husband what had just transpired, he called the owner back, and told him he had no right to speak to me like that, and that we would be waiting at the restaurant for him to apologize to me. The owner yelled more obscenities and hung up. We told the staff what had happened, and one girl said, "Sounds about right." The other girl looked horrified, and the first girl turned to us and said, "It's her first day." We left, and about 10 minutes later, the owner called my husband back and said that tempers were running high, and he was sorry. While my husband said he sounded genuinely sorry, either of us thought that any professional should snap like that at a customer who was trying to use a certificate the restaurant itself decided to offer. I debated whether to write this review in the same way a person might debate pissing on an flagrant asshole. I didn't want to do it, but humane duty insisted. When choosing El Greco, I expected a low-key Greek establishment where I could have a nice conversation over quality food without too much hassle. What we got was a really long conversation about the various locations of our food, drinks, and waitress. Strike number 1, it took 15 minutes for the waitress to come to our table. Add another 5 minutes to that for our drinks, water and soda. Strike number 2 took another 15 minutes, 30 minutes total at this point, to get our appetizer. Keep in mind that when we arrived there were only 4 other parties, none of them large. Strike number 3, wrong fucking appetizer. The waitress apologized and encouraged us to take the plate brought out so she wouldn't have to get yelled at again. We obliged out of compassion and hunger. Strike number 4 my girlfriend and I thought it was a bit strange to see both chefs walk outside for a smoke break despite our lack of entrees. We both hypothesized and took small bets as to what would be the problem this time. It turned out that the chefs never received our entree orders. Again the waitress profusely apologized and said they were expediting our orders, once they finished with their break. Strike number 5 for what El Greco charges for food, this restaurant shouldn't be self-service. And yet I got 90% of our drink refills. I'm not above serving myself, but I shouldn't have to pay for it. After all, isn't that part of the reason I'm at a restaurant to begin with? Coup de grace, the food was forgettable and salty. The orzo was a step below some Chef Boyardee creation, and the rice pilaf was dry white rice. If I wanted shitty salty food I would have made it myself. Please, for the love of God, don't go here. If you want a similar experience to that offered by El Greco, sit in a hallway with a friend for an hour and a half and tear up $40.